Imagine walking down an empty corridor when suddenly, a ghostly figure in a nurse's uniform appears at the far end. What would you do? Just past midnight, I began my routine patrol along the hospital's long, decaying corridors. The walls were covered in peeling paint and faded hospital posters, remnants of a once thriving institution. The silence was complete until I caught movement at the corridor's end. There, drifting like a sad wisp of mist, was a nurse in an old uniform, her face pale as moonlight and eyes hollow with sorrow. My heart skipped a beat. The figure glided slowly, as if burdened by an eternal grief, and the soft sound of weeping echoed faintly behind her. "Hello?" I called, my voice trembling. Only silence answered. Despite my racing pulse, I felt compelled to follow her. As I neared the open door from which she had disappeared, I discovered a small, decrepit room. Inside, rusty medical equipment and yellowed charts were scattered about. On the cold, cracked floor lay a crumpled note, its message scrawled in a trembling hand. I never left. Local legends told of a devoted nurse who stayed with her patients until her last breath, refusing to abandon her post even after the hospital closed its doors. The note confirmed my darkest suspicions. Her spirit still roamed these haunted halls. As I turned back, the security monitor flickered to life, revealing a momentary flash, a pale, sorrowful face reflected in static, before vanishing into darkness. I bolted back to the office, my mind reeling with the possibility that I had just encountered the living echo of a tragic past. What if, in the dead of night, you answered a phone call from someone desperate for help, only to discover that the voice belonged to a soul trapped in a forgotten room? Barely 2 hours later, while reviewing old security tapes in the musty office, the phone rang. The line, normally silent after midnight, shattered the quiet with its insistent ring. "Hello?" I answered cautiously. A distorted, trembling voice whispered, "I'm still here. Please, help." The urgency in that voice was palpable, each word dripping with desperation. It mentioned a forgotten patient, a lost key, and a room deep in the basement that had been sealed off decades ago. Every syllable exuded the torment of a spirit trapped in endless isolation. With my heart pounding in my ears, I noticed the caller ID, unknown. Clutching the phone like a lifeline, I set out towards the basement, following a maze of dim, creaking hallways. The further I descended, the heavier and damper the air became. At the bottom of the stairs stood a large metal door marked Room 13. Rumors among former staff spoke in hushed tones about the tragedy that had sealed this room off, leaving behind a legacy of sorrow. In my pocket, I discovered an old, tarnished key I'd found on my last patrol. With trembling fingers, I inserted it into the lock. The door groaned open, revealing a small, musty chamber dominated by a solitary, time-worn bed and a desk cluttered with faded photographs and a dust-covered diary. I hesitated, then picked up the diary. Its pages told the frantic, maddening story of a patient documenting his confinement and desperate pleas to unseen forces. The final entry, scrawled in blood-red ink, read, "I called for help. I hear them coming. They won't let me go." At that moment, the overhead lights flickered violently, and I felt an icy breath graze my neck. The phone rang again, and this time the caller's voice, now louder and filled with raw, palpable terror, screamed, "They are here. Please, you must help me." Before I could even respond, the line went dead, leaving me in a silence far more deafening than before. Shaken to my core, I closed the diary and retraced my steps, knowing that Room 13 had released a desperate cry that still echoed in the depths of the hospital. Have you ever looked in a mirror and seen something that wasn't really there? Imagine if that haunting vision declared, You belong to us forever. As the first hints of dawn crept through the grime of the high windows, I assumed the terrors of the night were behind me. Around 5 a.m., exhausted but hoping for solace, I reviewed the final reports when a soft, rhythmic tapping echoed from the corridor outside the office. The sound was insistent, like a heartbeat, drawing me away from the relative safety of the security room. I ventured into the corridor, its silence now shattered only by the relentless tapping. Following the sound, I arrived in the grand lobby, a vast, decaying space dominated by a crumbling staircase and long-forgotten memories. On one wall hung an ornate, time-worn mirror. As I stepped closer, my breath caught in my throat. In the reflection, I saw my tired eyes. Yet alongside them was another pair, an exact duplicate of me, but with hollow, soulless eyes and a twisted, eerie smile that spoke of malice. I stood frozen, paralyzed by a terror I couldn't name. The reflection shifted, and in that moment of unspeakable dread, it vanished, leaving behind only the cracked, empty surface of the mirror. My heart hammered as I recalled an old legend of a guard who had vanished during a night shift, doomed to appear only in mirrors as a ghostly reminder of a fate unescaped. Desperate to retreat, I rushed back to the office. Once inside, I discovered my monitor's glass, upon which was scrawled in bold red marker, "You belong to us." I stared at those chilling words until my vision blurred with tears. This final message sealed the horrifying truth. The spirits of Edgewater Hospital had claimed me, binding me to their eternal night. With the first rays of dawn, I hurriedly finished my final report and left Edgewater Hospital, my soul burdened with a terror I could never shake. I barely slept for days, haunted by the sorrowful phantom, the anguished midnight caller, and the sinister vanishing reflection. I began researching the hospital's grim past, uncovering tales of unexplained deaths, mysterious disappearances, and local legends of restless spirits whose sorrow and rage seeped into the very walls. I eventually quit my job, unable to escape the relentless whispers and the chilling feeling of being watched. Yet even now, as night falls and shadows lengthen, I catch fleeting glimpses of that pale nurse, or a hollow reflection in a dark window, each a reminder that some horrors refuse to be forgotten. I share my story with you today not just to recount the terror of that fateful night, but to remind you, sometimes the darkest secrets are not hidden away in myths. They reside in the places we think are forgotten. If you've ever experienced something inexplicable on your own night shifts or in the quiet moments of darkness, you're not alone. If you enjoyed this spine-chilling tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more true horror stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. And remember, when midnight comes, listen carefully, because the darkness might just have something to say.